Welcome to today's informational webinar for the NIH Common Fund's Precision Medicine with AI, Integrating Imaging with Multimodal Data program, also known as PRIMED AI. Today's informational webinar will cover the Data to Model Academic-Industrial Partnerships funding opportunity, which uses the UG3-UH3 activity code. The full funding opportunity number is RFA-RM-27-012. This webinar will also cover the Model to Clinic funding opportunity, which uses the UG3-UH3 activity code as well. The full funding opportunity number for Model to Clinic is RFA-RM-27-013. The due date for both of these NOFOs is October 19th, 2026. My name is Caitlin Browning, and I am from the Office of Strategic Coordination, the office that runs the Common Fund. I am on the PRIMED AI program team alongside Dr. Sahana Kuke, also from the Common Fund, Dr. Sangeeta Bhargava from NEI, and Dr. Chris Kandarpa from NIBIB. You'll hear from each of us today as we introduce you to the NIH Common Fund and to the PRIMED AI program. You will also hear from Dr. Paul Perlman from NCI, Dr. Michele Ferrante from NIMH, and Dr. Mohd Anwar from ODSS, who will walk you through these funding opportunities, explain their eligibility requirements, and provide guidance on the application process.
Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on new funding opportunities in the NIH Common Fund's PRIMED AI program. My name is Sahana Kuke, and I'm the program leader for PRIMED AI. To start, I'd like to take a few minutes to give you some background on the NIH Common Fund, the program office sponsoring this initiative. The NIH Common Fund was established by Congress in 2004. Its mission is to support bold scientific programs that catalyze discovery across all areas of biomedical and behavioral research. What sets the Common Fund apart from other NIH programs is its scope. Rather than focusing on a single disease or organ system, it invests in research that benefits the entire NIH enterprise and the broader scientific community. Common Fund programs are designed to be novel, transformative, catalytic, goal-driven, and synergistic. In practice, that means they tackle important challenges that no single NIH institute, center, or office could address on its own. These are the kinds of problems where a coordinated NIH-wide effort is truly needed to make meaningful progress. A defining feature of the Common Fund is how it brings people together, both scientifically and administratively. On the scientific side, researchers from many different disciplines provide input that informs the design of new programs. The goal is to make sure that program design reflects the real landscape of the science, not just any one perspective. For PRIMED AI, this included a strategic planning workshop held in March 2025, which brought together over 1,000 subject matter experts, community members, and NIH staff to identify high-priority opportunities and challenges in the field. That input directly shaped how the program was designed. After awards are made and the program launches, funded researchers then participate in interdisciplinary research consortia, working across institutions and specialties toward shared goals. On the management side, leadership and staff from across NIH, from individual institutes, centers, and offices, work together to develop funding opportunities and provide oversight throughout the life of each program. This collaborative approach helps ensure that Common Fund programs are well coordinated and that they have broad institutional support across NIH. Currently, the Common Fund supports more than 20 active programs. Each one is designed to change the trajectory of biomedical research, whether by accelerating emerging science, breaking down barriers that have slowed progress, or supporting high-risk, high-reward ideas that might not fit neatly within a traditional funding mechanism. Previous Common Fund programs have made significant contributions across a wide range of areas, from genome editing and human microbiome research to structural biology, pragmatic clinical trials, biomedical research training, and the creation of AI-ready data resources. These programs have generated new knowledge, tools, and resources that continue to benefit researchers and patients long after the programs themselves have concluded. Today, we are here to introduce the newest addition to this portfolio, the Precision Medicine with AI, Integrating Imaging with Multimodal Data program, or PRIMED AI. PRIMED AI was approved by the NIH Council of Councils in April 2025, and it represents the Common Fund's investment in harnessing the power of artificial intelligence to transform how clinical imaging data is used in patient care. In the remainder of this webinar, we will walk you through the program's goals, structure, and the specific funding opportunities that are now available to you as potential applicants. Let's get started.
I'm Chris Kandarpa, the Director of Research Sciences and Strategic Directions at the National Institute of Biomedical Imaging and Bioengineering. As you just heard, the NIH Common Fund aims to accelerate emerging areas in health-related science and technology. Today, nothing is more in the news than artificial intelligence. Concomitantly, the NIH supports advances in precision clinical medicine. The intersection of these two developments provides the rationale for launching this PRIMED AI project. Having said that, the practice of precision medicine requires a holistic integration of all available patient health data. Clinical imaging has and always will play a central and critical role in modern healthcare. Unfortunately, imaging is used in isolation and seldom included as a data element in current AI models for clinical medicine. Fortunately, advancements in data science offer new opportunities to better integrate clinical imaging and conventional non-imaging health data. Importantly, to be successfully accomplished, these developments must be driven by a team of scientists with expertise in various disciplines. And the governance and best practices of these innovations should be driven by the entire community of stakeholders.
PRIMED AI goal is to support the development and adoption of innovative, reliable, and cost-effective AI-based clinical decision support tools that integrate clinical imaging with other health data to improve care across a wide range of conditions. The PRIMED AI initiatives are organized around 4 key topics, as you can see in this diagram on the right-hand side. The first one is imaging and multimodal data integration, that is to improve access to and integration of clinical images with other health data types. AI algorithm and tool development. This is to develop and refine AI-based tools to support diagnosis, management, and prediction. The third is clinical implementation, that is to test PRIMED AI clinical decision support tools to advance precision medicine approaches. And lastly, trust and coordination. And this is to promote program cohesion, adaptability, scientific rigor, validation, and transparency. The scope of PRIMED AI is that clinical imaging includes any FDA-approved imaging modality used in patient care, such as radiology, ophthalmology, endoscopy, laparoscopy, and dermatology. PRIMED AI projects will use clinical imaging as the foundation and combine it with other multimodal health data, including EHR data, labs, omics, and wearables, to address clinical needs and support precision medicine. The expected deliverables. PRIMED AI will produce innovative and reliable AI-based tools, best practices for integrating imaging and multimodal data in precision medicines, and lastly, durable stakeholder relationships to expand and sustain the field.
The PRIMED AI team has developed 4 sub-goals that iterate on the primary goal and scope just described and underpin the project's funding opportunities. These sub-goals are highlighted in yellow, imaging with multimodality data integration to facilitate access to and integration of clinical images and multimodal data. Highlighted in blue, AI algorithm and tool development to develop and iterate on AI-based algorithms and tools to advance clinical diagnosis, management, and prediction. Highlighted in red, clinical implementation to test primed AI clinical decision support tools and catalyze new precision medicine approaches. And finally, highlighted in green, building trust and ensuring coordination with the primed AI ecosystem through coordinated activities to ensure program and community cohesion, adaptability, scientific validation and rigor, and operational transparency. Diving deeper into the description of notices of funding opportunities, but refraining for now from a description of funding mechanisms, the 5 primed AI NOFOs are: 1. Data to models, academic-industrial partnership. Phase 1 during the first 2 years will require demonstration of data integration and interoperability. Phase 2, upon successful completion of Phase 1, will require developing models and testing their performance during these final 3 years. 2, translating models to clinic will require rigorous optimization of multimodal AI models for broad clinical use. Phase 1 will require the development of AI tools which may be built utilizing existing databases. Phase 2 will require the evaluation of model utility in the real world. And to ensure trust and coordination, the 3 NOFOs shown in green boxes are playbook to create and codify standardized frameworks for the responsible development and use of primed AI models, including data ontology, technical management of data, error mitigation, and preparation for eventual interaction with regulatory agencies. The Logistics Center to administer the entire program and evaluate its performance, provide teaming support, and engage with stakeholder communities. And finally, the Validation Center, which will function coordinating with the Logistics Center to verify, validate, quantify uncertainty, and promote reproducibility of primed AI tools.
All notice of funding opportunities or NOFOs for primed AI will use cooperative agreement mechanism or will be using new activity code. This means that the NIH staff are highly involved and have scientific or programmatic involvement throughout the project. The NIH's role is to support the awardees' activities through scientific partnership, but not to take on a dominant role. The awardee is responsible for the project's overall direction. Playbook NOFO will use the U01 activity code. This code is used for supporting a discrete, specified, circumscribed project to be performed by the named investigator or investigators in an area representing his or her specific interest and competencies. Data to model and model to clinic NOFOs will use UG3-UH3. The UG3-UH3 cooperative agreement involves 2 phases. The UG3 phase for up to 2 years is designed to support a project with specific milestones to be accomplished by the end of the period. The UH3 phase is to provide funding for up to 3 additional years following successful completion of the UG3. The Logistics Center will use the U24 activity code, which is used for projects that are resource-related research projects. It funds large-scale, multidisciplinary infrastructure projects. The Validation Center will use the U54 activity code, which is a specialized center cooperative agreement. This activity code is used for funding large-scale, multi-component research programs designed to address complex, multidisciplinary biomedical problems. A major emphasis of primed AI NOFOs is team science and scientific collaboration.
This table contains key information for all 5 of the primed AI funding opportunities. Applications for the Playbook U01 opportunity RFA-RM-27-011 are due on October 9th, 2026. Applications for the Data to Model Academic-Industrial Partnerships UG3-UH3 opportunity, RFA-RM-27-012, are due on October 19th, 2026. Applications for the Model to Clinic UG3-UH3 opportunity, RFA-RM-27-013, are due on October 19th, 2026. Applications for the Validation Center U54 opportunity, RFA-RM-27-014, are due on October 2nd, 2026. Applications for the Logistics Center U24 opportunity, RFA-RM-27-015, are due on October 2nd, 2026. All applications are due by 5 p.m. local time of the applicant institution. Learn more about these funding opportunities at commonfund.nih.gov/primed-AI.
Hi, my name is Paul Perlman. I'm a program officer at the National Cancer Institute. I'm joining colleagues from the NIH Office of Data Science Strategy and the National Institute of Mental Health to introduce 2 related PRIMED AI notices of funding opportunity. These include Data to Model Academic-Industrial Partnerships, or D2M AIP for short, and the Model to Clinic, or M2C, funding opportunities. On this slide, you will find a conceptual drawing of the 2 related funding opportunities. The projects supported through these funding opportunities will exist along a continuum that begins with integration of novel multimodal datasets, progresses through the development of AI models, and ends with the deployment as an enabling technology for precision medicine. Both of these funding opportunities rely on the biphasic UG3-UH3 mechanism. D2M AIP projects are intended to focus on the data to model side of this continuum, with a focus predominantly on novel data integration work in the UG3 phase and algorithm development and performance testing in the UH3 phase. These projects are inherently more exploratory or blue sky in nature. M2C projects are intended to focus more on integration of existing clinical datasets and adaptation of promising AI algorithms in the UG3 phase, and clinical validation in the UH3 phase. These projects are inherently more pragmatic and more focused on real-world challenges faced today in the clinic. As is evident from the conceptual drawing on the last slide, the D2M AIP and M2C NOFOs mirror each other. For this reason, as we progress through this presentation, we will present the shared features of D2M AIP and M2C, as well as what distinguishes the NOFOs. They do have an overall shared goal of developing innovative, reliable, cost-effective, and sustainable multimodal AI-based clinical decision support tools that integrate clinical imaging with other health data to support precision medicine and clinical workflow adoption. They also have a shared scope. The CDS tools must be image-centered and integrate clinical imaging with at least one other health data modality, and they must also be developed as or towards software as a medical device. The D2M AIP NOFO supports academic and industry teams to integrate or harmonize novel multi-scale, multimodal data with clinical imaging and develop and test novel AI-enabled CDS tools. The key distinction for this NOFO is that it focuses on novel data integration and AI model development, technical validation, and de-risking for future commercialization. M2C is focused on translating AI-enabled, image-centered, multimodal CDS tools from validated prototypes towards clinical applications that address unmet precision medicine needs. The key distinction for this NOFO is that it starts with a promising or technically validated model and focuses on clinical adoption and impact. Now let me pass the torch to my colleague Michaela
Thank you, Paul. Hi, everyone. My name is Michele Ferrante, and I am the Computational Psychiatry Program Director at the National Institute of Mental Health. I'm here to provide an overview to the Data to Model and Model to Clinic NOFOs. Both NOFOs share the same funding mechanism. It's a UG3 UH3 phase cooperative agreement. A clinical trial is optional, and the transition to the UH3 phase is milestone-driven and requires NIH administrative review. The Data to Model funding opportunity focus on data integration, model development, and de-risking. During the UG3 phase, the projects will integrate harmonized multimodal data, will build and test novel clinical decision support tools, run initial pilot studies, and include technical contingency planning. During the UH3 phase, projects will refine and optimize the model, conduct analytical performance testing and usability testing, and engage with the FDA via pre-sub or a formal Q-sub inquiry. Clinical deployment and clinical trials are optional when appropriate for the Data to Model. For the Model to Clinic, these projects will focus on clinical adoption of an already validated model. So during the UG3 phase, these projects will refine and technically validate the clinical decision support tools. They will build clinical implementation infrastructure, begin co-design, address technical risk, and complete an FDA regulatory pathway assessment with a mandatory Q-sub milestone. During the UH3 phase, these projects will deploy the clinical decision support tools in clinical workflows, conduct clinical performance testing, and multi-site clinical validation. They will also monitor model performance and collaborate with the PRIMED AI Validation Center. Focus on the budget and timeline. The Data to Model and Model to Clinic projects both share the same project period. It's a total of 5 years, and the UG3 phase can last up to 2 years, and the UH3 phase can take the rest of the time for a maximum of 5 years together. The NIH Common Fund anticipates funding between 12 and 16 projects in total across the 2 NOFOs. That is contingent to NIH appropriations and the merit of the applications, of course. The budget cap for the Data to Model and Model to Clinic are the same for the UG3 phase. A cap is $450,000 indirect costs per year, and the UH3 phase, the cap is different. The Data to Model will have $800,000 per year, and the Model to Clinic will have $1 million per year indirect cost. Data to Model and Model to Clinic applicants must address 5 pillars: data quality and governance, clinically grounded AI, implementation adoption pathway, integrated multidisciplinary team, and the required error mitigation and technical management plan. Applicants must show verifiable access to clinical-grade imaging and address challenges with multimodal dataset to ensure that the resulting model is robust and reliable. The tool must be AI-powered, image-centered, multimodal, clinically grounded, and tied to a defined unmet clinical need, intended use, and intended users. Technical expertise required includes software as a medical device development, AI and multimodal data science, relevant clinical domain knowledge. Regulatory science expertise is required for Model to Clinic, while it's encouraged for Data to Model. Clinical workflow implementation expertise is required for Model to Clinic, but only required when clinical validation is proposed in the Data to Models. Data to Models must include substantive academic-industrial partnerships with at least 1 academic MPI and 1 industry MPI for nonprofits. Letters from industry partners are required and must document strategic alignment, long-term product vision, and resource commitment. Regarding the Model to Clinic, instead, it must begin with an existing, technically validated AI prototype and move beyond single-site studies through a technical and clinical validation.
And now that the key requirements have been introduced, my colleague Mohad will focus on what makes Data to Model and Model to Clinic applications non-responsive. Take it away, Mohad.
Hi, I'm Mohd Anwar from Office of Data Science Strategy. Let's look at non-responsive applications. Basic AI/ML without a clear translational clinical goal, no clinical imaging anchor, no defined unmet clinical problem, intended use or intended users, phase 3 clinical trials as primary scope. Clinical imaging rule. Clinical imaging must anchor the model. Digital pathology, microscopy-based ex vivo imaging may be used as multimodal data, but cannot serve as the imaging anchor or sole imaging data type. D2M AIP. No proposed development or validation of an AI-powered, image-centered, multimodal, primed AI clinical decision support tool. No substantive academic-industrial partnership. M2C. No existing AI-powered, image-centered, multimodal CDS prototype. Review criteria. Reviewers assess overall impact using factors 1 through 3. Factor 1. Importance of the research. Significance, innovation. Scored 1 through 9. Factor 2. Rigor and feasibility approach. Scored 1 through 9. Factor 3. Expertise and resources. Investigator environment. To be evaluated as either sufficient for the proposed research or not, in which case reviewers must provide an explanation. D2M AIP. Factor 1. Emphasis on value proposition, novelty of data integration or model development, transformative impact, commercialization, and eventual adoption. Factor 2. Rigor of image-anchored multimodal methods, feasibility of the academic-industrial partnership, quantifiable milestones, error mitigation, data access, architecture fit, credible contingency plan. M2C. Factor 1. Emphasis on clinical, image-anchored multimodal CDS value proposition, unmet clinical need, real-world clinical utility, and impact on translation or adoption. Factor 2. Rigor on clinical, imaging-anchored multimodal methods, validation matrix showing added value of multimodal integration, feasibility of data acquisition, curation, or harmonization, workflow integration across multiple sites, CDS interoperability, key deliverables, data, curation of comprehensive clinical imaging and multi-scale multimodal data that is fit for the intended purpose, integration and harmonization of the data to address variability in data format, resolution, completeness, and quality across sources. Primed AI CDS tool, development and testing of truly novel AI-enabled, image-centered, multimodal CDS tool developed in pursuance as software as a medical device. Note: D2M AIP projects exist in the pre-competitive space. There is no expectation of a market-ready product at the end of the project period. Thank you.
This brings us back to our conceptual drawing of the D2M AIP and M2C NOFOs along the continuum from data integration to model development to clinical validation and eventually deployment. The essential differences between these NOFOs have been discussed throughout this presentation, but can be effectively captured in the novel data integration and blue sky model development focus of the D2M AIP NOFO and the more pragmatic focus on clinical validation and downstream adoption in the M2C NOFO. That said, both NOFOs have the same overarching goal to lead to the development of innovative, reliable, cost-effective, and sustainable multimodal AI-based clinical decision support tools that integrate clinical imaging with other health data to support precision medicine and clinical workflow adoption. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for joining us today for this informational webinar. The PRIMED AI program team plans to host live question and answer sessions in the coming weeks. Details for these events will be posted to our website, commonfund.nih.gov/primed-AI, and distributed through the listserv. If you'd like to subscribe to the listserv, go to go.nih.gov/Z6E8R. View recorded webinars of the other PRIMED AI funding opportunities at commonfund.nih.gov/primed-AI/webinar. Find answers to frequently asked questions at commonfund.nih.gov/primed-AI/FAQs. Lastly, feel free to contact us with any questions at odprimed-ai@od.nih.gov, where we will match you with the appropriate scientific expertise. Thank you for your attention and for your interest in PRIMED AI.